Welcome to Ivy Lane Home. My name is Lisa, and today's project is this beautiful Bernhardt dresser. This is one of my favorite styles. It's a campaign style, kind of based on the Asian style. So I dove right in and started cleaning it, and then, well, I just started hacking away at the base. Okay, I'm working on the Bernhardt dresser. I started cleaning it and I just started taking off the base. I haven't even taken my pictures yet, but I wanted to back up and show you what I've done. So this was the base. It's called a plinth base. And it's just held on with some screws. You can see the screw holes there. And then on the sides here, the legs, it's just held on with one screw right there, and then some wood glue. So I just had to loosen take out all of the screws with my drill, and then I used my hammer and my 501 tool, and I just pulled it out. And I did the same for the bottom one. So there is some damage on this side, as you can see here. And so my plan is I'm going to cut this with either my jigsaw or my circular saw, and then I'm going to add some trim, and then I will put new legs on. So that's going to be the plan there. I think it would look really pretty with some gold legs, those kind that come here and then they wrap up the side a little bit. So anyway, yikes, I've already hacked it up, so it should be fun. Now it's time to take all this hardware off. It's a big job because there's a lot of hardware, but you want to do it gentle. So I'm using my 501 tool just to pry it out a little bit, and then I can remove those nail heads, and then it comes right off. When I'm removing my handles, I like to replace the screws into the screw holes just to make sure to kind of keep everything together as much as possible. And then I'll put all of my hardware in a bag just so that it all stays together. I do like to remove my doors when I'm refinishing. I just feel like it gives a better refinish. I know sometimes people don't like to put doors back on vintage pieces because it's going to be very frustrating. I find it gives you a really good refinish job. So again, I'm going to use my 501 tool and my hammer, and I'm going to remove all of those little pin nails and get all of the brass accents off. I do try to label my hinges. Sometimes it doesn't stick during the polishing process, but I at least try. So I'll do top left, or I'll do bottom right, that type of thing. So it helps me just kind of when I put them back together, I make sure that I get the hinges in the right spot. Now I'm setting up to use my circular saw to trim off that water damage. Unfortunately, I didn't hit record, and all I have is my aftershot, but I did use my circular saw to remove it. Now this is where I decided to pivot. I was going to paint it because, these look beautiful painted. But once I cut off all that damage, I was like, you know what? I can go ahead and refinish this. And because it had beautiful accents of burl wood on the doors, and I really love burl wood. So I'm going to use QCS. This is by Stripwell. It's a non-toxic stripper. It's one of the newer ones that I have tried. I've used it on a few pieces. I like using non-toxic strippers because I don't like all of the fumes. Our room is right inside the door from the garage, and if I use clean strip, I'm just smelling those fumes all night long. So I really, for my health and then just for my family's health, I am not going to use a really strong stripper. QCS works well. It doesn't work as well as some of the other ones that I've tried, but it is worth a try. I think it works better on antique furniture. After I let it set and kind of do its thing, you can see I came in with my carbide scraper, scraped as much off as I could. Then I use acetone with a 2/0 steel wool, and I'm trying to get off as much finish as I can. Now I'm ready to sand all of these profiles, and so I'm using these sanding contours, which helps me when I wrap my sandpaper around just to try to get into some of those profiles. This is a very difficult style to sand because of the direction of the wood. So most of it's fine, the long passes there, but you'll see when I get to the ends trying to get in and stay with the wood grain, it's very tough. So I end up using little bits of sandpaper. I'll use a Bondo spreader wrapped around my sandpaper just to try to get into those areas, because I don't want to create, I can't go across the grain or it'll create these scratches. So you got to go with the grain as much as possible. Now I'm going to do the same process on the side. When I thought I was going to paint it, I had filled in some of the water damage on the base. So I had some Bondo there. I'm going to sand as much of that back as I can. And then when I stain it, I'll probably have to come back and do some corrections as well. Once everything is stripped, I will sand. I start with 80 on any finish, then I go up to 120, and then I stop at 180. I decided to try a little shellac applicator that I saw in a book. Now, I probably should have used a white cloth. I didn't have a white cloth, so I'm using this cloth. You just wrap up some cotton balls in some cotton fabric, and that becomes your applicator for the shellac. Now, the shellac is really acting as a sealer. It really pops that wood. So if you have a really fine figured area like on these doors, it's just beautiful. You'll see the shellac really helps just kind of deepen that figure of the wood, and it'll just really make that grain pop. I'll do a quick scuff sand and tack, and then I'm ready to stain. I am using General Finishes gel stain in the color Antique Walnut. It's very easy to apply. You just simply wipe it on. You usually wipe it against the grain, and then when you wipe off the excess, you go with the grain. Once that's dry, I'm ready to seal it up. I'm using Osmo's hard wax oil. There's lots of different ways you can apply it. Nowadays, I usually put it on with a roller, but you can put it on with a cloth. You can put it on with a roller. They have a white, like a light abrasive you can put it on with, like a scrubby pad. It depends on how much coverage you want. So if you put on a roller, it's going to put on a lot more coverage. So otherwise, you have to do just more coats. At this point, I've decided I'm keeping this for myself. So I am going to customize it. I'm painting the interior area the color Chesler. It's from Fusion Mineral Paints. I just thought it'd be really fun to have a little pop of color when you open up those doors. Now I'm ready to reattach all of that hardware. I've given it a really good polish. I've sprayed any pieces that needed a little touch up, and then I'm just reattaching everything. Okay, I wanted to pause for a minute and explain to you what I'm going to do on the base. So originally it had these support pieces here and here, and then there was veneer that was covering them on the sides, but there was some veneer damage, so I have cut it off evenly here, and I'm left with this really nice thick solid wood base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse the support braces. It's 70 inches, and so I'm going to come in about 1.5 inches on each side. So I've already cut it to 67 inches. It's going to go right there. And then I am going to have a brace that goes that direction, and the whole thing is going to be covered in brass. So that's how I'm going to make a brass covered plinth base. So I was initially going to use the gold legs, but once I decided to keep it for myself, I had gained some inspiration from a dresser I'd seen on the internet, and so I was like, okay, let's just go over the top. I love plinth bases, and so I thought, let's just cover it with brass. Why not? I think it's a great custom element. On the plinth base. So yesterday I created the plinth. I used the old support and I just cut it off a little bit. I came in 1.5 inches on each side, and then I used the bottom one and I cut it and I attached this one to the side. So it's not fancy, you know, I didn't like miter it or anything. It's just a butt joint, but I'm going to cover it in brass. So this is what I've purchased. This is a toe kick in brass, and it's supposed to be able to be cut with kitchen scissors. So there's a protective film here, and then I guess it's like sticky. So I have some of the plinth trim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as my guide, and I'm going to just put a pencil there, and then I don't think I'll use kitchen scissors. I'll probably put it on a mat and then use an X-Acto knife and see if that will work. So here we go. So once I cut it and tried to use my X-Acto knife, it was definitely not strong enough to get through the toe kick. So I did end up having to use scissors. I don't feel like it cut as smoothly as it should have. Either my scissors weren't sharp enough or it just wasn't the right tool. So I'll probably cut it different in the future, but because of the way that the toe kick is inset, you really don't see it because any unevenness is kind of hidden by the overhang of the toe kick. I'll do a little scuff sand just to make sure it adheres really well, tack it off, and then I'll be ready to adhere it. Now this is a peel and stick toe kick, so it's quite sticky, but I had a little trouble with going over the curve, and so going the 90 degrees. I'm not really sure. I didn't want to scuff it, so I was trying to be really careful. You see I have like a cloth over my putty knife. I don't want to scratch it or dent it. So this side was the one that didn't curve as well, but the other one gave me a really nice 90-degree turn. So again, first time I've done it, but I think I need a better tool in order to create a sharper 90-degree angle. So on this one, I was hanging the door and I was on the last hinge, the last hole, and the screw broke off. The actual screw head broke off. So these are brass, and brass do tend to be a little, I guess they're a little thinner. So I didn't think I was twisting it too hard, but I must have. So after a lot of research, what I've settled on for a fix is I went and got a hole saw bit. This is a 1/2 inch. I'm going to drill out a 1/2 inch of this area because I've got to get the screw out. It's in there. I can't screw into it, and because it's a hinge, I can't just move it. It's got to go right there. So I'm going to put the hole saw in, cut out about a 1/2 inch, put a 1/2 inch dowel rod in there to replace the wood, so I'll have something to screw into because I've got to put that hinge in. So that's the plan. We'll see if it works. I'm sure there's lots of different ways you can handle this situation, but that seemed to be the one that made most sense to me. So I wanted to be careful. I didn't want to drill all the way through to the other side. So I had to be really careful with how deep I went. But I was able to drill it in, pull out this little piece of wood, and then you can see the screws in there, and I was able to get that screw out. I'll cut the 1/2 inch dowel. Now, it ended up being a little bit too small, so I'm adding some Bondo around it just to kind of fill in that extra area. I'll let it dry, cut it off, sand it smooth, and then I'll get it stained up. For a final element, I'm going to add some wallpaper to the front of the little cubby drawers that are in the middle where you open up those doors. So this is a beautiful paper I got off Wallpaper Company, and I'm just going to cut them to size for each of the door fronts, and then I will apply my paste, book it, and then just apply it. And then once all of the bubbles or any creases are out, I will sand the edges smooth, and that will just kind of help set it so that there's not any lift later on. Well, let's look back at the before. This was a beautiful piece. Obviously, I had the veneer damage. I had some issues on top, but overall, gorgeous quality piece. So after thinking about painting it, but pivoting it to refinish it, here's the finished product. What do you think? I love it. I love the little pop of blue in the middle. I think it's a nice little delightful surprise when you open it. Obviously, a lot of variations on the top. That was a different type of wood, but those Burl wood doors, that was the star of the show. I've used this for quite a while as my media console, and I recently sold it for $1,100 on my local Facebook marketplace and replaced it with another Burl wood campaign piece. So what do you think about this project? Did you like this tone? Do you like the middle part? Tell me in the comments, and thanks so much for watching.